afternoon, team. And if you're anything like us broadcasters and anybody who watched that last match, we needed a second to catch our breath after a brutal matchup between the D2 women's side. But we're back here for the D2 men's super regional championship for the northern part of club rugby. I'm Darian Lovelace, joined by dearest friend and founder of Great American Rugby. You know his name, Lance Kavanaugh. Lance, you've been in situations like this before for both men and college for these super regional championships. What is it going to take for one side to end up on top?
No mistakes. It's time to play your most perfect brand of rugby. It's time to put everything together you worked for all year. Don't change up who you are. Don't change your identity. Showcase the best that you delivered throughout the year and let your play determine whether you make it till tomorrow.
So we've got Kansas City in the red on the left-hand side, and then we've got the Indy Impalas on the right in the black and the white. Now, the Indy Impalas, who are on the attack already, ended up 51-0 for that Midwest Championship, so they know how to put points on the board, also know how to play defense. And then Kansas City, their fight to get here against Columbia, 41-24, was no easy feat, so both teams are going to be competing heavily as the first penalty gets drawn against the Kansas City Rugby Club. And the Indy Impalas go ahead and give a massive boot, which will get them down within the 40.
Absolutely. And there's a few players that you need to watch out for. This Indianapolis Impala side last year on these same grounds, Chicago Blaze Rugby Complex, put on an amazing performance led by the King Wing, Good Night. It's a bad day for any team that got a lineup against Good Night. He had an exceptional game over the fall to get them to this point, and now we get to see what they all have been waiting for. Imagine you have months and months since last November to prepare for the day while other teams were trying to fight their way to get to where we're standing. It's going to be amazing to see what the Impalas pull out. It's going to be great to see what Kansas City has to offer as well.
The Impalas are successful in a mid-catch on the line-out, so they are on the attack after having a good center field hit-up. But now moving it back to the inside is Inari, the number 10, who then looks to give a little chip kick, but strong defense, a wall comes up, and that leads to a foot race where Kansas City is on top, and in a turn of events, they're now within the 40, and an unfortunate knock-on comes in, but what a defensive effort from Kansas City.
And it's already started, right? Off the kick, Indianapolis is trying to establish themselves. I'll call them Indy. Indy is trying to establish themselves on the boot, make sure that this back three is wide awake and ready for what can happen. And just a deflection off of a Kansas City player. Looks like right off the leg. And once that ball was kicked, it was on to the races. If this kick and re-kick hops up any other kind of way, we might be looking at points on the board, Darren.
Nobody scoring as of yet between these two D2 sides who are competing for the opportunity to play tomorrow for the regional championship. And from there, they'll get about 2 weeks rest, and then they'll have to go and play in the club rugby championship. So we'll have the quarterfinals and the finals. So a lot of rugby to be had between these two sides. Scrum time leads to a little bit of a rocky foundation for the Impalas as the Kansas City already trying to break through. Somebody who is trying to break through the line, though, for the Impalas is Barton, as he gets a nice little break, and they find it in the hands of Inari, who kick it out of the 22, and it's at the 40 now, so good territory game already being found in the boot of Inari.
They have to establish themselves with the boot, especially with how this game can go. You got to play a little bit territorial, especially early on. No reason to give yourself more pressure being on the back foot so closely on try zone. They go right to the boot, and even earlier they tried to establish the kick just a little bit earlier. It went off the foot of a Kansas City player, but now they're going right back to it, ever so resourceful on that foot. But Kansas City has a great platform on their attacking end. Let's see what they set up on their first set piece lineup.
Throwing in now is the number 2, Land. Land finds air, though, as the ball goes to ground. But luckily, Kansas City are able to gather it, and a diving over penalty comes in against Kansas City. So now the Impalas will go ahead and quick tap. Space isn't exactly there, though, as the launch comes in beautifully from Kansas City, who are now corralling the Impalas into the sideline. But looks like somebody wasn't back 10. Referee blows it back up, so we'll have a penalty. And Lance, the penalties are starting to rack up a little bit against Kansas City.
Yeah, this isn't a good sign, especially early on. The last thing you want is that referee to be looking out and worrying about opportunities to blow his whistle. Let him just relax and let this game happen instead of giving him more chances to get involved. That's not going to spell well as this game goes on. But right now, a flip of fortune. We just had Kansas City with a line out around the same area, got it stolen. Now Indy set up right outside the 22, and it's the attacking position that they look forward to.
Looking forward now is the ball as it just Dan Marino's over the top, but then finds its way into the backhands of Kansas City. A little bit of some air right there, though, is fine. But what's not fine is a knock on from Inari when he tries to give it to Barton.
Okay, we're good. We have the knock on.
And we'll play that knock on.
Yeah, and this right here, maybe even a little forward, overly pressed just to get that ball there. And it's crazy because out the back from this picture here, it is a giant gap laid out if they go out the back to big man. But obviously from where we're sitting in the safety of the booth, we don't have to worry about the dangers on the field. It's easy to make those kind of calls. Kansas City scrum.
And Next Level Rugby always gives us the best camera views in the game, so it's easy for us to see everything as the eye in the sky. But somebody who's finding a lot of space, though, is the Kansas City team as they get well over the 50 and connect well with Palmer. But a little bit of some messy play from the Impalas. Get a penalty going in favor of Kansas City.
And I thought that would have been a good tackle and poach. Good night, got a hit on low on the ball carrier, flipping through, and it looked like the poacher might have had good position. Unfortunately, the referee, looking back on it, makes the call. And just like that, Kansas City, this has been back and forth. Both teams really bouncing between the 22s. And now with Kansas City having ample opportunity to attack, this looks good for their prospects. And here you see the dummy not really working, the winger stand back, makes the tackle here. And on the ball, you got the poacher on the ball, never opted to release. And as he got rugged through, unfortunately, the referee looking to his AR made the call for him. It's good to have a three-man group handling everything here in the referee situation, but line out is now.
Line out time was now after Jones kicked it out of bounds, but this kick does not find touch as Palmer now gets another crack at it. Elects to go ahead and give it to the backs, and they've got some room to work with if they can make it. They are not successful in doing that. They've got to play a little bit of a cleanup game there, as somebody else who's trying to clean up the ball is Barton from the Impalas, and Barton does a good job of making an absolute mess of things for Kansas City over on that right-hand side.
We've seen a very, very high energy matchup already. I mean, both teams are going at it. Every tackle contest seems to be highly confrontational. And yeah.
And there in the corner in the red hat, keeping us up to date, is Pat Clifton, none other than the director for CRCs. We were there with you last weekend, and to say it was a blast would be an understatement, as we just continue to press on, and so do the Impalas. The Impalas get a little bit of a cheeky pick and go, and you can see what it means as the Impalas from out of nowhere strike first 5-0 over Kansas City.
Yeah, there's no one there for that ruck. After losing this line out, just fingertips away, Indy gets their hand. And after this tackle is made, no one from Kansas City really steps up to counter ruck.
Oh.
So the first man up can pick it up. No one even close or there. Steps right through to the ball, picks it up, and there is not a person in sight. Everyone's looking up at the offensive line, not manning that space right next to the ruck. And it's not even a foot race. Once he had his hands on the ball, it was a try, foregone conclusion. And with that toss and flex, Indy is up 5 with a conversion to come.
Looks like that was Tapusoa who made that try for the, or excuse me, Nay. Nay made that try for the Impalas. My apologies. And a conversion is also good as well. So the Impalas 7-0, but the intelligence from the Impalas.
Yeah, and you got to take these moments to make the most of those opportunities. If you catch anyone sleeping, especially in these playoffs, because meterage points are hard to come by, especially as you progress further on. And it's nice to get cheap points, not necessarily cheap in this case, but cheap points to get the lead.
Kick goes up and is fielded well by the Impalas, so they will have an opportunity now to attack as they find a connection within the forwards. Forwards give it a rumble, and a little bit of a tumble leads to a diving over penalty from Kansas City. So the Impalas now regrouping as Temple goes to boot, and it does find touch. So we'll have a line out right within the 40, deep within scoring capability of the Impalas.
And this is a scary situation. It's seemingly you gave up 7 points, and in the snap of a finger, you're back standing at the place you were less than 2 minutes ago when the game was tied. Got to regroup. Kansas City has to find a way immediately to stop giving up penalties because they're giving Indy every opportunity, and Indy seems keen to maximize on every single one of them.
Working through the nerves right now. Only 11 minutes gone here in this first half for the competition between these two sides for the D2 Northern Regional Championship that will be played tomorrow here in Lamont, Illinois. And leading the brigade consistently is Temple. Quick to get the ball out there, calling for some look at the breakdown. He gets it onto the outside with a chip kick through, finds it in the hands of the number 15, who goes for the dummy kick and is able to kick it out of bounds. You've got to wonder if he was outside of the 22. So it looks like ball is going to come back for a lineup from where they've kicked it from. And we've seen this picture about 3 times now, Lance. And on the first picture that we saw, the Impalas were extremely successful.
There seems to be a conversation. And we're going back for a high tackle. That is amazing, actually. Before the kick.
So the Impalas, Temple, he's going to go ahead and kick in the corner, try and get them at just a skosh closer as we take a look here at this penalty.
Yeah, and you see Kansas City are going to go after every poaching opportunity. The ball goes over the top. There's a kick, and there's a shoulder charge on the kick. Wow, that little mistake could end up costing Kansas City some points.
Set for the lineout is the Impalas, 5 meters outside, and you couldn't ask for a better picture after they scored just minutes ago off of a line out, and an unfortunate mistake comes in from Kenny. It's a not straight, so the Kansas City side will elect for a scrum, but they've got a massive fight ahead as they are pinned all the way down in this end, 5 meters out.
Yeah, now we're going to see Indy's ability to set a beautiful platform. This is an attacking situation that makes every back smile. If they have the trust and they go to the back line, you only have to make a half break to really have a good opportunity to score. But let's keep in mind that the pick and go from the 8-man is definitely on. Oh, excuse me, it's a turnover. Oops, apologies.
Reverse. As we see the scrum also get pushed backwards there, and the number 8 has to really do a good job of keeping the ball in. Johnson and all of the forwards are kind of in that ruck, but the number 10 is under a lot of pressure there. He's got to kick it, and he's unsuccessful in making it out. So the Impalas now will go ahead and look to lead. A dummy from the number 14, though. A nice little show and go. Gets him the go forward that they need. And the Impalas, Temple wings a pass, and the ball just continues to work backwards. The try scorer's got it, but we heard the loud ring of the whistle, and Kansas City just got a little bit too excited there. And Temple from the Impalas asking for a little bit of some chill vibes as we take a look back at this replay.
That move right there is one thing, but that dummy here, he confused multiple people with that. Where you jumping, buddy? There's nothing there. I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Jumping for not joy there, where Kansas City, as now they are on the defense against the Impalas, and the Impalas are showing a lot of promise here, doing a good job of maintaining their possession. They're going to go ahead and use their forwards, the big men coming in to do the job. But the defense of Kansas City holding extremely strong as they get that low body height. But who won that body height contest? It looks like that was the number 8 for the Impalas. Schroeder gets 5 on the board for the Impalas, and 12-0 Kansas City still remain down.
And just like that, Indy takes a step forward to get head and shoulders above this Kansas City side. The pick and goes and the drive is absolutely perfected. And once they seen that close to the ruck was taken care of, just a little pop pass, a space away, outside help, couldn't chop them down in time. And just like that, Indy is extending their lead against a Kansas City team who seems to make far too many mistakes when it counts. They've had great opportunity to relieve pressure, couldn't make the most of it. And Indy is roaring right now.
Temple will get set for this kick. We talked about their road in order to get here to the regional championships. The Impalas know how to score points. They're 51-0, and it's because they do creative, little silky smooth movements like this, Lance.
Whoop! Sorry, buddy. Next time, maybe. And just to keep the leg drive, making sure Indy has possession. And all it does is lead to Indy being on the doorstep. And they set up quickly and decisively with help. Easier try that they'll find next to their first try. And they've extended 2 tries up over Kansas City.
17 minutes gone in this first half, and we're really starting to see the decision making of both sides here. Kansas City using the decision to give a big boot to ball. They get it in the hands of Inari, who also dishes a big boot of his own, and they find themselves even further back now. They lost that territory battle, and Kansas City now are right in front of the 40, well past the 50.
This is the time to show up. This is the time to showcase. The point differential means nothing this early in a matchup. So much game left, so much rugby to be played. But at some point, this red team has to come alive. Kansas City has to show up and showcase. What better time than now? After giving up points, you got to be able to respond back. That's what champions do.
And this is the first time that these teams have played each other, also competing for an opportunity to play in the regional championship tomorrow, and then make it to the quarterfinals and the finals for the club rugby championship, which will be May 18th and 19th for the USA club divisions. We've got a lot of rugby happening this weekend, and a lot of offsides calls are being called here by both sides.
Yeah, they gotta find a way to minimize mistakes. This is one of the few from Indy early on. Kansas City has been the one who's rung up the penalty counter earlier in this matchup, and the score reflects that, giving Indy so many opportunities. But now, Kansas City can roar back. These are the mistakes that they need. These are the mishaps that have to happen to give them an opportunity to get back in this game. Indy has to find their discipline and not open a door for a Kansas City side deserving to be here.
Both sides will compete to play against whoever is winning our other match that's going on the other field for the D2 regional championships, the Milwaukee Barbarians versus Denver Barbarians. We've got both fields going for you so that you can stay up to date on all things rugby. As we get underway, Kansas City finally playing down in this end as they do a smooth behind the back pass. Ball is able to get fielded cleanly and a step back inside off of a nice switch. Gets the number 14 going and revved up. Palmer throwing palms there as they get it to their forwards, and an offload finds a little bit of isolation there, but a good clear out gets Kansas City back and rolling. Players remain stagnant, so a dummy might have just cost them possession, but Kansas City still remaining strong and holding on to this ball, using their forwards a lot here. Somebody comes over the top, and the fall is awkward from Brandon, and everybody comes in for some frustrated hugs.
Yeah, bring back the Biff. Automatically from the outside, you see a Kansas City player stepping into the middle, not liking what they see. Referee has to call time. Hopefully we can hear the conversation between him and his AR.
My head ball was out. Came in, hit him low. He was going for the ball. I'm fine with that. He got hurt. I blew it up. Red coming in, attacking player, pushing, shoving. Yes. We do a penalty. I think it's anything, bring it down for a from a yellow.
No, I think it's he's coming, he's pushed. It's the
We're good.
I blew time off already. You don't think I should bring it anywhere else? Think fine, that's fine. Hey, copy. Okay. Captains. Ball down here. We're gonna have the penalty right here. What happened? The ball was out, clear on the playing the ball. Then we had him injured, number 9 injured. What I did was I blew off the ball because he was down. And then what happened is the player came in, shoving. Stop it at that.
We missed the punch that injured him.
I missed the punch and injured him. I saw the first push coming back off of everything because he came in from the side after I blew up the ball, attacking the number 1 that was getting the ball there.
Wait, so we're getting.
You got penalized. It was a scrum.
Okay, to us?
To White because they had the ball. I was just blowing it up for the safety.
I didn't have the ball. We had the ball.
Ball was out, and he ended up on top of it. And then the player coming in, we're going to do the penalties. Okay, let's talk to him for a second.
It's got to be a yellow for extras, right? I mean,
We're good with where we're at. Talk to the guy.
any extras are on warning, right? Any extras?
We're not.
Looks
Okay.
like
Talk to
we
the
are
guys.
off to a very frustrated start
I know,
for
just talk to the
Land,
guys.
not
We're good
wanting
with
to
everything. You like to
remain
push and
grounded. There's always one kid in the class who stirs the pot. Looks like Land really wasn't happy with something that happened in there. And Lance, with these club championships, all of these athletes work full-time jobs outside of this. The frustration and what it means to them, this is their outlet. We just see Land kind of lose his cool there for a second.
Yeah, you definitely got to keep your head when it comes to these championship times, right? I've been blessed to have other teams get frustrated and blow up in games and give us more opportunities, yellow cards, red cards. Any championship situation, you got to be worried about the main goal, keeping the first thing first.
Able to recover it well is the Kansas City, and they'll go on the attack after a penalty and an unsuccessful lineup from the Impalas. Leaves a little bit of vulnerability there. Ball goes up and it's bounced around. Referee is going to go ahead and call it back for a knock on that'll go in favor of Kansas City.
Kansas City. Opportunity has been granted to them multiple times in the first half of this first half. But they have to find a way to put it all together. Big collision right here. You're seeing bodies hit the floor. But as soon as they have an opportunity, something seems to come awry. Last time it was the hooker joining into the rough. This time, just intrusion by the defense. Let's see if they can figure something out here. And they don't.
Free kick goes in favor of the Impalas. And Lance, you just mentioned the whole first half of the first half. Momentum is constantly changing between these two sides as we enter into the final 20 minutes of the first half there. Getting a little bit caught in front was Inari, so he's got to work back behind Brandon. We've seen a really good connection coming in for them. And another thing that's remaining connected is this defense for the Impalas. Kansas City, though, getting a little bit excited at the breakdown. We see here some cheeky play happening on center field, but what's going on the right-hand side is a massive chase, but it's unsuccessful here as the number 14 rounds the corner for Kansas City, tries to cut back inside, does well in his inside center. The two Palmers, you gotta wonder if the big bro came in to save his brother there off of that, and the connection between the two gets a penalty against the Impalas. And we'll take a look here at this beautiful line break from Palmer.
Scoop, scoop, one hop to the right, and it's a foot race from there. And once he's around the corner, he's shaking, moving, shimmying. Just too many defenders to get away from everyone. Gets tackled, and this ruck out, boom! Oh my goodness. That's how you pay for trying to get the ball back from your team. And it even works out for Kansas City to get the penalty, which they opt to go for the line out. A bit of great play from Kansas City, maximizing on the kick that was a little bit extended, unable to get the chase down to happen for Indy. And now Kansas City on the doorstep to greatness. They got to find a way to put a perfect set of phases together to get points so they don't get goose-egged in this first half.
12-0, still a lot of time to turn that goose egg into points. Looking there for the golden seam, though, is Kansas City, and they find it with a nice little gap around the forward pod, which gets them some good go forward, and now the Impalas are scrambling on defense. Can they keep eyes up here? As Kansas City looking now, there is a lot of space to burn on the left-hand side if they can get it there, but the Impalas look to be responding well as bodies just come flying in. We don't know who's on top, but we do know there's an arm out towards the Kansas City side for coming in from the side.
Option.
And opting from the scrum is definitely a great opportunity. Most teams would take the points. Anything on the board is better than nothing, but they're going for the scrum here. They're going to position as many players to one spot of the field as they can. Looks like they got their back line set up here on our right-hand side, and this is a great attacking opportunity. 5 meters out.
Scrum time between these two sides. Kansas City hold strong at the front, and the number 8 is able to get it off to the 15, and Kansas City, Warner, finds his way into the tri-zone. Kansas City now 5-12, and the Impalas are finally getting to see Kansas City showcase what got them here.
Yeah, you got to make these tackles early on. Indy had an opportunity to chop down this 8-man. He go 8-man pick in the direction of the scrum half who can't make the play, and that just overextends and stretches that weak side defense. We got players sliding into the tri-zone. The red are rolling, adding points. And 5-12, this close to halftime is a good sign, especially when there's still time for you to add on to what you have now. Good job, Kansas City.
Kansas City will get set for a conversion. Over on this left-hand side, it's not an easy kick. Kick looks like it's the right angle, and flags do go up. That was a very hard angle there for Jones, but made it look easy here. So now our score 7-12. The Impalas still on top, but I've got to say Kansas City is really vying for that lead.
Yeah, there's work to be done for this Kansas City side, but they're definitely stepping up to the challenge. Indy started to make their own set of mistakes, having their own set of issues, recurring penalties, things of that nature, giving Kansas City an opportunity on the doorstep, which they maximized.
Kansas City able to get that kick receipt, so they are down within the 40 now as the number 9, Brannon, moves it to the forwards, who then move it to the center of the field. And Jones gives a big boot. Back there, though, there's good coverage there as they move it back inside to the wing, who cuts back inside as well. Still continuing to go, though. He's finally brought down right at the 50. Good footwork coming from Good. You'd expect nothing less. As Marsh gives in inside pass, and it goes right into the hands of our try scorer from Kansas City, Warner. Warner making a movie there for himself. Moves it away. And the number 5, unfortunately, just gets too excited. Gaston moves it a little bit too quickly there, and a knock on for Kansas City gives Impalas the opportunity to scrum.
Yeah, we just had a slew of movement happening from both teams. We had Good Night going down the sideline, splitting defenders. And we got Kansas City going right back with the dummy that might have been there to go through the line. Scoop, scoop, I'm sorry, buddy. Please get off the ground. And this dummy, maybe the defender from Indy was close, but great opportunity for both teams going back and forth. This is fast-paced, fun rugby.
And the work rate from Irvin that came across to make that hit on Gaston drew a knock on. So now the Impalas are looking now to get out of this end. But a big hit came in from Palmer, but he might have just gotten a little bit too ahead of the defensive line, and offsides call goes in favor of the Impalas, but that was some defensive pressure that came in from Palmer. He's been really sound in all contact points around the field.
Yeah, these guys are showing up left and right. And the beautiful thing is this Indy team is so comfortable on this pitch. This is where they won the Midwest. Space is there around, but look at that lift. Unfortunately, couldn't keep the ball. When you get lifted like that, sometimes your first reaction is your personal safety. Ball aside. And I think he made a decision, losing the ball a little bit, able to protect himself on the way down. Luckily, there was a penalty. And now Indy inside of their 10-meter with an opportunity and a platform. Let's see what they make of it.
The Indy Impalas set for the line out here from the number 2, Kinney. Trying to get some movement there in the front. They do go up and they fall for it, Kansas City, so they're able to get it to that middle pod, but it's a low throw, so then he's got to be taken to ground quickly. That was our initial try scorer, Nay. Nay's also able to draw a penalty there and is set and ready to go, but Temple calls off the crazy idea of trying to go quick by the back row player and gets set for a kick.
Just go off the weak side next time, eh? You came right through the rock. West front. Mark right there.
The Impala is now down well within the center net, about 10 meters out. 12-7, they are on top against Kansas City.
Right, come on, guys, let's use it. Let's use it, guys. Come on, get in.
Starting to have a little bit of a huddle. Referee says, get it together, boys. They go in the middle, go to fake it. Nobody let their thrower know it looks like what the plan is, and it results in some disconnect there. And so Kansas City will end up on top. Getting dragged underneath, though, is Kinney.
They're not straight. We don't need to drag him. I already called him for being held down, so we're telling him to stay, okay? Good? Captain, we have the not straight. What do you want? Scrum option? We have scrum option. Up here. We moved a little bit. Right there.
It's all good. I got you next time.
And essentially the referee, even though it was not straight and Kansas City had ball in hand and opportunity, he blew that up because the player seemed like that was on the ground, was being held there, unable to roll out. Kansas City player pulling him out. He did not like that. Scrum down, set now.
Set!
Emotions running very, very high for these two men's sides as the ball gets into the hands of Jones, who kicks it and then catches that number 14. Good. Almost made things go from bad to worse as he's just not able to come around the outside. It looks like there was a miscommunication there between Good and All Good. That ended up all bad for him as Kansas City now right within the 40 and the 22 get a line out.
Yeah, and here it goes, the small mistakes. The ball being kicked over his head, touching it on the way over, and then trying to keep it in bounds, which was great. He found a way to keep it going. Play on, says the ref. But unfortunately, when it was time to connect, the ball gets thrown in the wrong direction, and it basically goes out in the same place and fighting to keep it on. Nothing more than that, though. Kansas City with a great opportunity outside the 22.
And we've got about 7.5 minutes left to go in this first half for the D2 regional championships that will be played tomorrow. This winner will face off against whoever wins the Milwaukee Barbarians versus the Denver Barbarians that are playing on the opposing field. A kick from deep within this end from the Impalas. It gets it into the hands of the wing, who elects to keep it himself because of that defensive line coming in from the Impalas. And this defensive launch, also headed by Kansas City, gets them all in a good defensive line as they are meeting them well at the gain line. But a lot of receivers on the outside, so Temple decides to give a little bit of a drop kick, and it ends up going straight out of bounds. That game management now starting to set in, and because it goes straight out of bounds, it'll be a line out from where Temple kicked it, and it'll be a throw-in coming in for the Kansas City.
Oh.
We have the line out.
That might have deflected off of somebody or hit somebody on the way right after the kick. Almost charged down. So now Indy has an opportunity again, moving 20+ meters after the deflection and continue to keep ball. That's an amazing turn of events.
That happened so fast. That's why they have both of us here, so that you can see the things that we all can't land. So now Temple gets it from the line out in the middle, and they're going to go ahead and move it through the right-hand side. Somebody that elects to keep it, though, that does a good job of getting the meters, is going to be Marsh. Somebody's not having a good time, though. That's Palmer, as he gets called for an offsides penalty, making those big hits. He just keeps launching out of the line a little bit too much. That's his second offsides penalty now, going in favor of the number 13 Palmer on Kansas City.
Yeah, and after that tackle, the ruck was formed and the ball squirted out. Unfortunately, he's not eligible to grab it coming from an offsides position. You see the referee said ball out and play on, but unfortunately he took that initiative and wasn't in the right place. And just here, this half break, looking for offload opportunities, not there. Tackle and ruck is formed, and as the ball spills out, he never established himself on his side of the offsides line. Anyone else in that red picture had an opportunity to get the ball, but unfortunately, no one jumped on it faster than him, and it turned into an offside situation. And Indy could add 3 points right here.
Temple looked like he asked for the kick, so he'll be the one to try and get the 3 points over Kansas City. Revs up for the kick. Kick goes up. Looks like it went straight through the sticks. Flags do go up, so that'll bring our score 15-7. The Impalas leading. Kansas City on top, still not able to answer back. And we've got about 5.5 minutes left to go in this first half. Lance, what are you thinking about saying during those halftime conversations that honestly could be those game-changing moments that could lead you to getting an opportunity tomorrow?
If it was Kansas City, it's let's stop making mistakes. Let's find a way to settle into this ball game and play our style. Seems like they're overly frantic, doing things that's giving Indy more opportunities than they deserve. And if I'm Indy, it would be to continue doing more of what you have done. A lot of what they've done so far has been good work, maximizing anything that Kansas City does in air. And even now, great opportunity for Kansas City to get ahead, but couldn't hold on to the ball. Knocked it on, but a scrum down for Kansas City bodes well for their chance, especially as this first half ends.
Number 3, Irvin from the Impalas knocks it on center field. Very good attacking position for the Kansas City. They've got to try and answer back here. An 8-point deficit isn't a lot, but if they can kind of close the gap a little bit, they'll have more positive things to say during the halftime. As the scrum gets underway, Brandon will be the one to throw this one in. There's a lot of feet are moving underneath the scrum here, and the Impalas almost get over, but the connection that is supposed to happen between Schroeder and Allgood is not found. Somebody gets tossed in the out of bounds, but he does well to give it back inside to one of his teammates. So Kansas City now still attacking, and coming from depth is this forward pod. They buy themselves a lot of meters with the connection of that little tips play. We see here Jones looking to distribute, gives a little bit of a show and go inside, met by two defenders though on the Impalas. Rolling out of that is the Impalas, as Kansas City now are just continuing to play. A lot of phases there, but is this too stagnant of movement for them? It's not. They're getting the go forward that they need, but somebody else is also trying to get their hands in there. Impalas, though, get it in from Allgood, who dishes it back inside to Gaston. Excuse me, that was Warner. And this line speed coming in from the Impalas might have just bought them some time. Somebody, though, who was not on sides was the number 8 for the Impalas. Somebody who was ready and waiting for the ball was the number 11, Cremeen, and Cremeen gets over for the try, and that's going to bring our score 12-15. And Lance, the Palmer brothers, there to give somebody a big hug. That was a big moment for them.
And this changes the complexity of this entire half, what's happened in the last 30 seconds. KC finding a way to keep ball in hand, almost had an opportunity to get the ball stolen, but they are ready, able to support and get some protection over that ruck. And from that point on, KC is around the corner, adding 5. And man, Indy were in a great position going into halftime. Now KC have a bit of momentum as they close this deficit they were under down.
And Club Rugby, we love to play a game of Where's the Tea? And it is officially found now, as the number 10 for Kansas City, Jones, now well within his time in order to take the kick, has to get set. He did make this conversion over on the side. That flag giving him a little bit of a wave there. So he gets sat for the perfect angle. This conversion means a lot. Ball goes up, and the direction looks good. I think that it stayed down. So it looks like we're going to keep our score 12-15. Kansas City still underneath the Impalas, but that's only a 3-point deficit. That's the closest that they've come to a lead. And it looks like this might be the final play of the first half.
Yeah, less than 30.
Less than 30, says the referee, as Indy walks up, slow creeps to the line. They have a small lead going in a half, and the way that Kansas City's played this first half, they should be really proud of the circumstance they're in. They show they're explosive, can find a way to manufacture and make points for themselves, and they're off and running again.
And Warner gives it back to the Palmers, who do a nice little hands interplay, but somebody's putting on pressure there on Brannon, and it looks like it was a little bit too much pressure. Referee not happy as an advantage goes out. Finds its way in the hands of Tempo on the Impalas, but it's going to get called back here by the referee. And you'll have to wonder if Kansas City want to go ahead and attack and try and get some, risk it all in order to try and get ahead, or if they're just going to tap and kick it and go to halftime.
They're choosing half.
And Jones, smart decision, decides to go ahead and regroup. So the Indy Impalas on top of the Kansas City Rugby Club, 15-12. We've got a whole second half coming at you for this Northern Regional semifinal. Stay with us. Welcome back, team. Indy Impalas versus Kansas City, the D2 semi-regional. The D2 regional semifinal that's being played between these two sides. We've got the Indy Impalas on top, 15-12 against Kansas City that scored a try in the last minute. So, Lance, you've been in these situations before. You get it better than most of us. What do you think those halftime conversations were?
Well, this is gut check time, right? For one of these teams, this is the last half of their season, right? So the first thing you tell the people is to relax and get back to what it is you do. I've said this over and over this broadcast. You gotta go. You gotta leave the dance with who brought you. You have to make sure you're playing the style and the way that you play that got you in this situation to represent your conference in these Northern Super Regionals.
Kansas City get an early penalty, and they find a lot of success within the boot of Jones. Was able to get a hard angle conversion there earlier in this match.
Other side of midfield.
But both teams competing for the opportunity tomorrow to play in the D2 Regional Championship. And then based off of who wins that, they'll get the opportunity to go on and represent for that club rugby championship. We already set one tomorrow for the D2 women's. We watched South Buffalo just take advantage of the Boulder Babes there, and we're just able to get a massive win. Grand Rapids Growlers showed us the passion that it takes to play more than 100 minutes of rugby. They did very, very well, but they're going to be pretty battered and bruised as they vie for that position. This match is going to be no different. Very competitive, very ruthless, and Lance, the talent in both of these sides is pretty impressive.
Yeah, both of these teams got players that have college history. Both of these teams got players, and it seems as though a few are college football players who've been playing D1 at some level. Some teams that play for the some of the better teams in the Midwest that are D1, USA Rugby South. So this field is full of players with experience, but whether or not they can work together and bring it all together on the day to win for their side is yet to be seen. I'm hoping Kansas City can fight for some life and show that they're here the way that they did at the end of the first half.
Kansas City already having a strong heartbeat as they were able to get in there for the last little bit of the half, and their launch looks really good. Palmer leading the brigade there. He gets it in his buddy, the other Palmer, who is able to bring them to ground, and they're on the back foot now, the Impalas, as these defensive pressure might be well rewarded. Many phases here played as Palmer gets it bounced off of Well, and Well is taken to ground there. Arm goes up, though, because somebody was a little bit too slow to get out of there, so referee is given an advantage for the Impalas. Kansas City come across, though. Palmer tackles somebody out of bounds there. Looks like it might have been Temple, so they'll come back for that initial penalty.
Yeah, you can't, like I said earlier, Kansas City should try their best not to allow the referee to get involved in this matchup as much as possible. Early on, he's already blowing things up. And this Kansas City team is led by a core group who's been together for a long time, at least 6 years. Their head coach, Pat Clifton, said that one of the things that they've been consistently improving and building a culture that they can attach to the numbers, attach to the talent that they have around them. But they definitely do have to make sure that they dot their I's, cross their T's in games like this. Indy is not going to go away, especially if they have incentive with the lead that they have.
Ball goes up and ends up in the hands of the Impalas. Temple moves it to the 10, who moves it to the centers. And, of course, none other than Marsh is going to go ahead and stick it to the Kansas City. They get set on defense, and they leave that breakdown alone. Temple tries to go behind the back of his Impalas, of his forward brigade, so somebody ends up with it in the hands. And then the Impalas end up with it back into the hands, and they get a lot of go forward. Somebody's hands are around neck, though.
Around the neck.
And everybody, of course, wants to grab necks as well. The ball is not 10 and Lance. This is looking a little bit sloppy there from both sides.
I got time off.
I mean, you can see the passion of both teams. The ball was taken from a Kansas City ball carrier, stolen by Indy. He was tackled high around his neck as he got held up.
I had it was not 10. Had advantage. Second, out of bounds. What were you seeing with
Yes,
9?
the player tackled and he gets up and he pushes the player who's tackled him on the ground. And then they have another white player, I believe it's white 7, come in pushing as well.
So 9 and 7 of white
Yes,
we're pushing.
Pushing the whistle.
Escalating. It's aggressiveness. We don't need that in the game already.
Happened twice, and
Yeah.
it's happened early in the game, and it's 2 of them just now.
So I had the penalty first going against them. Now we're going to reverse it for a penalty and a yellow card.
Yes.
1 or 2. Thank you.
First instance.
First one's 10.
Is white.
First one then 9.
No,
Right, 9?
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Captains.
Oh, no.
Captains, bring it in. Step back. Thank you. So what we had first was the high tackle, and then had the penalty, not 10.
Yeah.
Played it, blew the whistle, getting ready to play the next advantage.
Yeah.
After the tackle was happened, we had excessive pushing and shoving from you, 9, and then from 7 coming in. We're going to play the first one and take it off, okay?
Both of them?
Just one, just you,
me?
just you. Talk to the guys. We don't need the extra around the neck. We don't need any of that. We're going to have the penalty, playing it right here in your advantage. But talk to the team right now.
Captain Temple for the
everything was
Impalas,
gained,
their
and then-
scrum half has to have a seat. Referee says that there was excessive pushing happening here over on the sideline. We see everybody here having a nice little chit chat. Everybody here needs to kind of use their
Eight's gonna be
words a
captain.
little bit
Thank
more
you.
than their hands.
We have time off still. Please hold.
Referee has to have that hold age rule, so time will go ahead and go back on. And the Impalas 15-12, they're only leading by 3 points. Lance, this yellow card could be the momentum shift that Kansas City needs.
And these are the mistakes. You got to make sure you keep the first thing first. And it got a little chippy, right? An Indy player got his neck wrung on a tackle, and then there was an immediate quick tap off the high tackle penalty. Not back 10, but just being a little bit too aggressive coming in to defend your teammates. Being the first one to initiate the pushing match gets you a yellow card, unfortunately for the captain. But this referee has been, at least he's been fair across the board, making sure that the first person to antagonize is the one that get pinged for it. Unfortunately, it comes with some colorful cards, and this 10-minute sit-down might change everything for Kansas City.
And you just hope at some point the teams both start to show off their aggression in play with bigger hits rather than push and shove matches on the sideline. As Kansas City now go ahead and get underway, trying to work it within their forward pods. They end up getting pinned back even further back, so somebody's got to go in and dig it out. Franklin gives it to Jones, who gives a big boot. Palmer's good on the chase and ends up running right into All Good. All Good is a little bit isolated there, though, but the number 13 does well to protect the ruck. Somebody's hands are in there, and referee's not happy, so a not releasing penalty from Kansas City goes in favor of the Impalas.
And there's a thought that goes into this. If it's the scrum half who gets a yellow card, where does the deficiency in the defense happen? If it was a back 3 player, you'll understand those kicking opportunities there. But if it's a 9, that just basically means maybe the up and unders are more available. Those cheeky chip kicks not too far away from the rucks or these tackle situations. I want to see how Kansas City decides to exploit this man advantage they have.
And Kansas City are going to have to answer back quickly, as Temple will be rocked and ready to go here within the next 7 minutes. 3 minutes already gone on that yellow card. And 10 minutes, while it seems like it's a long time out, is not if you can't make something out of it. So the Impalas are set and ready for the line out, using the fake there at the front. They're able to get the ball cleanly, but referee calls it for a penalty and is giving the Kansas City an option, and they'll elect for the scrum.
Man, Kansas City now has an amazing opportunity, right? If it's a scrum down, someone's going to have to man that scrum half spot. And if it's a backline player, there has to be space somewhere. Can Kansas City make the most of it? This is a good time to get some points, steal back this lead, or steal back the game right now.
Looks like Good Night, the number 11, is having to come in and play defense as the scrum half. So they lead this left side a little bit vulnerable, but recognizing that nobody's over there, they've overloaded their left-hand side, Kansas City. So gonna look now to move it wide. They do a little skip pass to the number 15, who gives it into Palmer. Palmer gives it back inside to Palmer. Palmer gives a hand to the shoulder, and they're able to ruck that cleanly. Jones gives a little bit of an inside, pops it on the inside. The interplay continues, and the number 8, it looks like, for Kansas City will go ahead, and Johnson will get 5. Kansas City now on top of Indy Impalas for the first time this whole match.
Woo! They got to running. That ball stayed in the air. They didn't really set up for many rucks, and they're just deciding to just run right to left, left to right against this Indy side. They get it all the way to the sideline. And when it's time to go back, they find the space in the middle of the field. That man advantage showing itself early. They're 2 minutes into that yellow card and already found a try. Indy needs to settle in, hold the fort, park the bus, find a way to get out of this yellow card without giving up more points.
Jones gives the boot and converts that try, so it'll bring our score 19-15. Kansas City are on top of the Impalas, and they are still a man down. The Impalas are at a loss right now with Temple, that big connective piece. We see him there at the top of the screen, just head down. When he comes back in, he's going to have to make a big difference here, because 30 minutes are left to go for this regional semifinal. Winner of this match tomorrow will compete against whoever wins the other game that we've got going on between the Milwaukee Barbarians versus the Denver Barbarians. That'll be for the D2 Regional Championship. And from there, we will send only one for the Club Championships. That'll be held on May 18th and 19th. Back in the back, though, is Warner. Cool as a cucumber. He kicks it straight out of bounds there within the 22, so we'll have a line out going to the Impalas right in front of the 50.
And if Impalas can find a way to keep their offense as sustainable and flowing without having their captain, leader, scrum half on the field, it would say a lot about that team's culture and that team's organization. But it's going to be a tall task, especially against this Kansas City side, who found a bit of momentum and are maximizing on Indianapolis mistakes, that yellow card, and also giving away multiple penalties only for it to be reversed off a little bit of aggression and pushing and shoving. Kansas City has a great opportunity if they can get more points.
The Impalas have some substitutes that roll in, and the connection just not found in the middle of the lineup. But what is found is in this number 16, it looks like. That's McGinty, who just makes a mess of things. And it looks like Goodnight might be taking a nap there after a big collision in the middle of the field there. And a lot of pressure is happening here. They're getting a little bit close to the injured player. Looks like he might be up and moving, but a lot of big collisions just happening there between the Impalas and Kansas City. But the Impalas are still holding strong there with the pick and goes, trying to keep it within. We still have a player down there. Looks like that might have been Goodnight after a big collision with Gaston, the number 5. And already a man down right now. The Indy Impalas are only playing with 13. Play continues on, though. They're getting closer and closer to the injured player. You have to wonder if referee's going to blow it up at some point. Continue now to use the pick and go. Impalas just deciding to go ahead and string together some phases and not really wanting to force an error there. We've got another player down, though, for the Impalas, the number 6, just slow getting back up there. This is tiring phases as the forwards are just having to do pick and go after pick and go, and just a nice little shot from that interior defense. Forces a knock on, though, right there for the number 14 for Kansas City, but Lance, a lot of bodies down and a lot of bodies out of that play for the Impalas.
Yeah, this is a good time for the ref to stop the clock. Make sure that Goodnight is getting some aid right now. That was a bad scene. Hard charging runner, getting through multiple players through the line, bodying people and one of the smaller guys on this Impala team. High in skill, high in spirit. Definitely one of the people they depend on, especially in those Midwest semifinals and finals. And he had a one-on-one tackle job against one of Kansas City's best players, or excuse me, one of the Kansas City's most explosive, ferocious players, running straight at him. And it is just a bad scene. He got his head caught on the wrong side, maybe took a bit of a knee or thigh to the head, and immediately after contact, we knew that he was gonna have to take a second. Unfortunately for Goodnight, one of my featured players of the game today, of the way he played in the Midwest, but unfortunately, bad things happen to good people sometimes. But this man running right at you, making no turn, no weave, no nothing, didn't go any other direction but right at him. And good day to Goodnight. Unfortunately, it seemed like his time today might be done. Kansas City are rolling right now.
Pushing a little bit. We still closing that gap. Stay bound.
And Goodnight gave them a little bit of the dream there. 15-19. Indy Impala is still down, but it looks like he saved that try. Johnson looks like he was heading right for the try zone there, and the sacrifice might have just kept them out of there. Looks like Temple is still out. We had Inari, the number 10 fly half, have to come in, but you've got to wonder if that yellow card, Temple's going to have to come in and make a big change up, especially if we've got one of their key players out. But right here, Warner, the number 15, the fullback, gets it off of the back of the scrum, but the line speed coming up from the Impalas puts them under a lot of pressure, as now they're having to catch the ball behind the back. Line is set for the Impalas. Their defensive line looks good, so no choice but to go to the boot is Jones. Jones catches somebody behind. He takes it into the try zone and touches it down. Ball might have gone in there. So we'll see what the referee calls.
Sorry. Card. Card on.
Yellow card. Temple finally able to make his way back onto the field now. So now the Impala is back to a full 15. And referee...
Kate brought it all the way in, so Red brought it all the way in. So
it'll be a goal line dropout, it looks like, for the Impalas.
Yeah, and now that they're back to full strength, the game complexity has changed since their captain was on the field. It looks like it was kicked in by Red. Goal line dropout to come, and this is a great opportunity to attack for Kansas City as well.
Temple boots it, and then it gets all the way to the 50, but Warner does a good job of connecting with Land. Land finds some real estate there within Faulkner, who's brought to ground. Moving in now within Jones. This is good ball movement. They've got a hinge around the corner. You can see the Impalas calling loudly for the substitute. It leaves a space open in the middle there, though, for Kansas City. And playing quickly is Jones. Jones moves it to Palmer, who cuts back inside, and it's scramble defense for the Impalas as they flood in everybody into the ruck. Referee gives a double whistle. Somebody was not in a good position there. He'll go ahead and walk over to the AR and talk about what happened.
Tight, they throw everything.
Yes. Referee giving a penalty for the Impalas for diving over. And Temple decides to go quickly. It looks like he's not 10. Lance,
man, I feel for the referee.
There's a lot of mess happening right now.
We know 9 took off on it. I called it.
I feel for him. I mean, high emotion game right here.
referee having a conversation there on the sideline. We'll see what the call ends up
I had the
being,
penalty
but
going to
Temple.
white card for red, but do we have the number on red? I do
It
not have the
goes
number.
quick.
That's Palmer.
Yeah. Number
Palmer.
13. Looks like number 13 was the one who got in the way.
Referee looks like he's definitely going to go to the pocket for all of these infringements. And Lance, emotions do run high, but the fatigue starting to set in for both of these sides is just leading to a lot of frustration and unneeded things. We've got Temple already with the yellow card because of the pushing and shoving, and now it looks like somebody else is also going to get a card. Because they can't get the right number, you have to wonder who will be the culprit.
Sorry, I was expecting to hear the referee's conversation. But yeah, number 13 after the quick tap. And the referee called that penalty late. So it's a kind of a circumstance where Kansas City didn't have an opportunity to get back.
I know, but just because I look a certain way, you can tell it's me.
That's not it.
But because the referee can't give the card to who it needs to be given to, it seems like someone's going to get off scot-free. Someone tell him we have TMO here in the Next Level Rugby booth. We know who did it. But unfortunately, he gets away with it.
And these moments make a big difference here. We've got 23 minutes left to go in this second half with Kansas City on top. Kansas City, they elect to kick deep within this end, and the Impalas, fresh out of the 22, have Temple dig it out, who moves it to Inari. Inari finds some forwards waiting in the middle there. Does well to keep his body height and maintain possession. Temple moves it to Inari. There's a little bit of a gap there. Somebody got called for an offsides, and Lance, we're spending more time in penalties and conversations about it than we are in actual play here for this match.
Yeah, he's looking to give a card. Somebody's gonna get hit up. If he's giving a penalty, if it's Indy who...
Yeah, we've got 7 white shoving, instigating, off the ball.
Oh my goodness, another card to number 7 for Indy. After a card wasn't given to Kansas City. Oh my goodness, this is a turn of events. But such an emotional game.
Your AR should have caught a number earlier. Right?
Keep going. Thank you.
I mean, you understand my frustration, right?
Don't start yet.
And
Points?
you've got to wonder,
going
the
for points.
frustration coming in for Temple, from the Impalas, because he did just get tossed around like a rag doll by Palmer, and there was no card because they couldn't find a number. Usually if it's a team infraction, the captain would have a seat, so he didn't really get his due diligence, but there we just see a little bit of some chippy play happening back there for the Impalas. And so now number 7 will have a seat. That's 2 yellow cards now going in favor of Indy. They're down by a couple of points, and Jones will go ahead and elect for the conversion. But Lance, I mean, conversations need to be had, but it seems like we've had numerous conversations already.
Yeah, and I believe that the referee is to the point now where he's tired of penalties, tired of the push and shoving. Me personally, I am a fan of aggressive games where guys are emotionally tied in. I mean, that's what it's about. You put your time, energy, heart, and soul into it. You know, that becomes a byproduct of it, especially for some of these players. It might be the most important game that they had. But that situation right there was not a card. Nothing, number 7 on the top right. And I don't know if there's something that happened in the tackle right before that. Okay, he pushed the guy away, but the emotions of this game matter to these guys. It's some of these guys' most important game that they've played, so.
15-22, Kansas City on top, and they are off to the races now. The number 14 for Kansas City, Palmer, makes some good meters there for them as they move it now through the hands. A big hit, though, comes in, and it forces Kansas City under a lot of pressure. They're pushing people out of the way after cutting behind a player now. Kansas City getting off with a lot of scot-free calls here. We've got to wonder if referee will go ahead and call it back. A knock on, though, for the Impalas goes in favor of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, you got to feel for him. Referee is having a lot going on. Big hit from the small guy. David versus Goliath, and David wins. I love to see it. And Goliath didn't take kindly to the stone being thrown into his head. Takes a hit, grabbing on extra stuff. And I mean, both teams are definitely pouring in a lot of emotion into this. But this hit right here, stopping the ball from going around. Amazing play from this Impala side. And they got to find a way to get points back, even with the referee seemingly having moments where it's not working out for him.
Choosing now to find connections in Palmer. Palmer, though, just throws a Hayward pass, so it ends up in the hands of the Impalas. And continuing to press on is Schroeder. So Temple is able to recover the ball, and on to the attack is the Impalas. They're at the 50. Emotions running high for both D2 sides. There's an opening, though, on the right-hand side, but the number 13, the outside center, he gets caught quickly and taken to ground. Solid launch from the Kansas City side, who are on top here. Inari takes it to the line with his two forwards in tow. They get over top, but somebody comes in and is just annihilating the contact. Temple gets under pressure, so then he just gives a little kick through. And Lance, we talk about the emotion. These sides, everybody here not only plays rugby, but they also work. They have families. There's a lot bigger purposes coming in for all of these athletes that are currently playing.
Yeah, these games matter. I mean, if you love the game, you know, like most of us do, it's something about these high pressure situations. It's something about these games that mean a little bit more. A win here says something about your season. It says something about the decisions you had of being outside of the house 2 days, 3 days a week for practices. So I can understand the feeling of both teams. As you see the double screen of the Barbarians versus the Barbarians, Denver is up 8 points over Milwaukee. Both teams vying for an opportunity to make it into the quarterfinal round.
And whoever wins that Barbarian matchup will face whoever wins today. We've got 20 minutes to go. And this might be the moment that the Impalas need. He was the initial try scorer. That was Nay. Nay making some moves here as Temple gets it to center field within the forwards. Forwards, though, coming in and protecting the ball. They do well there as Temple gets bullied at the back. Not very solid protection there from that forward ruck. And Temple now is able to move it to Inari. Inari tries to give a show and go. The launch, though, from Palmer gets him down quickly. And Temple just taking a little bit of time to get there. They move it back to the right-hand side. Schroeder does it over the top. And the dummy buys a little bit of time for Nay. This ball movement is really playing a big role here.
Now we got a card. He found the perfect infraction to give a card. He found it. It happened.
See who has to have a seat.
Wait, I was blowing it up beforehand. Thank you.
Looks like that's going to be Reynolds.
Angle through the shoulder into him. We have him going off. Okay?
Reynolds will be having a seat. We've seen 3 yellow cards for this D2 semi. We've talked about what it means there, but just the reckless infractions have led to a lot of these moments.
Yeah, and this guy goes over the top, trying to make the clean out tackle of a guy being dragged down. Right here, no wrap, all shoulder. It didn't seem like he did anything to kind of grab at the guy. Referee right on top of that, even though he slipped underneath, but referee right on top of that. No wrap, just all shoulder contact. And unfortunately, Kansas City has been asking, begging, pleading for a yellow card, and they finally got their wish granted, given one here in the around the midway of the second half. And this can change the complexity of the game for them as well.
Kansas City with a yellow card, and they are also finding themselves on the back foot against the Impalas as the lineout is won cleanly. Electing now to pick and go there. They're just trying to find the perfect time to attack. We know that the Impalas can rack up points because of how methodical they are. So the process is paying off. They're getting a couple meters, just chipping away there, the pick and go, diving at ankles. Looks like there's a lot of people falling on top of it, and a little quick bout of hands leads to a forward pass, though, coming in for the Kansas City side. So the Impalas now will get a center scrum in probably a better attacking position than what they were just in with that line out on the far right.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kansas City needed to find a way to get this ball away from their own try line. The tick, tick, tick of the clock, getting this yellow card situated and getting points while it's even, with both teams having a player off for this shorter bit of time. But soon, Indy's yellow card will be back on the field, and Kansas City will be shorthanded. They need to find a way to get some points right now because it's going to be a tough proposition in about 4 minutes.
Both teams in an eye for an eye type of situation here. They're only playing 14 on 14, so it's really anybody's game as at Temple. He just gets flooded by multiple Kansas City players. They do well, though, to maintain their structure, as getting tossed to the ground is the Impalas. Well, they work within their forward pack. The pack working tirelessly to not get stood up, but Kansas City, there's bodies there. Choosing now to find some more support in a different point of contact is Marsh. Marsh is almost over, but it looks like no try will be awarded. He didn't get it, but they did get a penalty.
Yeah, held up, but they already had a long arm penalty.
Not gained. Scrum option.
They'll elect for the scrum there, finding themselves on the opposite side of the post. So it'll be a scrum going in favor of the Impalas. We've got a little less than 15 minutes left to go, and whoever wins this will play against either the Denver Barbarians or the Milwaukee Barbarians. It's only a 7-point difference, Lance, and if it's anything like what we saw in the last game with the D2 women's, it's all about game management now, and there's two differing perspectives. The Impalas right now, they're down. The clock just seems to be going quickly, and right now Kansas City, time can't seem to come sooner. So both are going to be competing heavily. Temple gets set now for the feed into the scrum. The number 8 has good footwork there, which leaves Temple free. He keeps it, though, because of some good aligned speed coming in. Might have been too good, though, as we've got an offsides arm coming up from the referee as they continue to pick and go is Indy. Now, if they can score here, they could go for a conversion. Continuing now to press over the top. Referee says that the advantage was not gained. So you got to wonder what the decision is going to be from Temple. And he elects for the scrum.
Again, back to the scrum. Double move stopped that phase of play when they had such a strong advantage. Pick and go situation. Unfortunately, lost his feet a bit, tried to get right back up. Referee is on top of it. Go back to that penalty. And the opportunities is happening for Indy. Multiple penalties, multiple issues. And again, I'm really worried about Kansas City possibly giving themselves another reason to get a card, because these multiple offsides penalties and these multiple hands in the ruck doing way too much in the tackle contest is gonna cause problems for them, especially as this game progresses.
Referee blows it up. Not happy with the form on that scrum. So we'll have a reset, it looks like. And the Impalas are the ones who will get this scrum advantage. And this is a very big moment. We're getting ready to enter into the final 15 minutes of this matchup. So every opportunity really counts for them. And the Impalas bullying over, trying to get a drive over scrum, but the front row is stuck in the middle, though. Temple gets it to Inari. Inari almost loses it, but gets it to the wing, who then dots it down in the corner. It looks like they'll score. And with Jones, he's got a lethal boot. So we'll see if he can convert this, but that'll bring our score 20-22. Kansas City still leading, but Indy knocking on that door.
Yeah, and this is going to be one of the most important kicks of the day. This conversion, to tie it or not. But look at the hands here. A trip, a stumble on the fall, a wraparound offload, and just on the fingertips, able to catch it and dive to the try line under heavy contest. But this kick right here, I mean, we're talking about your entire season leading up to one moment because a made kick right here relieves some of that pressure, and you just have to extend and play a little bit more instead of having to overexert and try to get a lead back or get back level on the scoreboard.
Temple goes for the kick. The angle looks good, but the flag stayed down, so we're still at 20-22. Now, Lance, in that last game that we saw with the D2 women, poor game management from the side that was on top. The Sabres actually ended up in the Growlers getting a try, and then they went into double overtime, did their thing, and then the Growlers ended up on top. But what does it mean to have good game management when the score is so tight and there's so little time?
This is what I go back to from the beginning. Having an understanding of the time, circumstances, and situations is the only real way for a championship team to close out tight matches. You can't overexert yourself. You got to know when the clock is low. You got to know when it's time to waste a little bit, when you're walking up to a scrum, when you're going for points to the post so that you can get an extra 35, 40 seconds ticked off. It's very important.
The Impalas, after getting a very deep kick within their 22, just not able to get any go forward off of that. They ended up drawing a not releasing penalty from Clack.
And another bit of it is the emotions that have been plaguing both teams and have had such a handle on how this game go. Like I said, going for the post, taking that extra 45-second time off the clock, spending that little bit of time, getting the rest, getting you guys confidence. We make this kick, guys, we're up a try. Now we just got to keep them from getting into our try zone. It's a whole different matchup if you add this 3. But the emotions of the matchup are really what muddy the water and cloud your judgment to keep you from playing in a time management frame of mind. Kansas City doesn't have that issue going for points here.
Jones set for the conversion, or for the penalty kick, excuse me. Kick goes up, angle looks good, and the flags go up. So, Lance, like you just said, Kansas City now on top, 25-20. Easily manageable for Indy to get down there. They know how to score, but it hasn't been very common for them to be down by this amount of points as time starts to dwindle down. What are they going to have to do to penetrate through this Kansas City defensive side?
Well, first thing is they have to rest easy on the fact that they do have a man advantage right now. There's still a yellow card on the board. They have to find a way to maximize it. Got to make your tackles, and you have to make sure that when the opportunity comes for you to get the ball back, you get the ball back for your side and put more pressure on this Kansas City team.
Palmer gets a high tackle coming in from Schroeder, the number 8 on the Impalas. We heard referee go ahead and call for the advantage. So Kansas City now get to wind down the time here, and the Impalas, tiring stuff. And as things get more tired, the body height gets a little bit higher. Jones will go ahead and look to kick this one out, gain some more territory, get them out of this end, and push the Impalas even farther away from their try zone. It gives it a very good kick downfield. That ends up all the way over in the opposing 22. And now the Impalas have about 80 meters worth of work to do, which might not seem like much when you don't have a defensive line such as Kansas City in front. 25-20. The Impalas need to answer now if they want to make it to tomorrow.
Yeah, and what an impressive kick. I mean, that's about as close as a 50-22 moment as you can ask for. Absolutely swinging the field the opposite direction. And again, if Kansas City can force a penalty, this is a great moment again to go for conversions, extend your lead on a shorthand.
Ball goes up and ends up in the hands of Jones, who gives a pass, and there leaves a lot of space open there just by the skin of his pants there, though. Warner is brought to ground by the Impalas. Defense doing well to connect there as they try and keep them out of there. Good low body height coming in from Kinney. forces them down to ground, and it puts them under a lot of pressure. Jones elects to go for a drop kick. The angle just does not do it, and ball rolls right out the back. So we'll have either a scrum, a scrum from where he kicked it from.
No, I believe it's a 22. If you drop
You're
kick
right.
it and it goes out the back, I believe it's a 22. I could be wrong though.
I could have sworn that you had an option either between the 22 or from where they kicked it, but I've also been out of the 15s game for a while, so rules are constantly changing. That's why we've got Lance Kavanaugh here in the booth. He knows rugby better than really anybody, I feel like. So the Impalas go ahead and they kick. Jones goes right back to the boot after he gets it, kicks it straight into the 22, and that looks like it was behind the 50, so
that's a 50-22? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Kansas City has found a way in probably the time of the game that is most needed to let their boot do the talking. First kick, penalty, inside of their own 22, kicks it to the other side, right inside of 22. Now, after a dropout from a missed drop goal, they go right back to a 50-22, and they're on the doorstep.
There's a competition that happens at the front of the line out there, and the Impalas and Kansas City are both competing for it. So we'll see what referee decides will be the call and who will get the win over that.
Got to be knock on white. Yeah, got to be a knock on white right there. So now we have a scrum down. Kansas City still got the ball. Less than 4 minutes to go in this matchup. A 5-point lead, and Indy's going to have to go the length of the field after getting the ball back to somehow find their way inside, to find their way back into this matchup.
4 minutes left to go here in this second half of the D2 regional semifinal for the North. And next up, we're going to be bringing you the men's D1. Lance will be joined by none other than the John Broker for that matchup that'll happen between the St. Louis Bombers and the Park City Haggies. Hopefully that's right. And the Kansas City, though, Park City Haggis will be playing the St. Louis Bombers. Gintier producer, always the one there to make sure that I'm saying things correctly here. As Kansas City look to maintain possession, though, they are right at the 5, and they've just got to keep ball in hand here. They've got a 25-20 lead over the Impalas as they keep it within the forwards. The Impalas just grabbing for any bit that they can, throwing in bodies. They elect now to move it into the center's hand, who finds his forwards right back in there, but then gets it stripped away. And there's a big collision that happens in the middle of the field coming from the Impalas.
Right out. We have a
Tackle now is called. Big clear outs are coming in now as the Impalas have to work extremely hard to get out of this end. Moving it now in between the centers. They find some connections there within the wing and the fullback. Staying in, though, is the wing. Hands are on the ground. It looks like a penalty might have been called for that, but referee says play on. A behind-the-back pass ends up with the Impalas now getting at the 40. This looks promising from them if they can keep the momentum going. Temple moves it way past Denari to Brandon, who cuts right back in, and it looks like somebody's over there. The big man in red gets the turnover, and so now Kansas City are looking to attack. Palmer cuts back inside into Ney. Palmer gives it back behind to an awaiting Kansas City player. Ney still remains vigilant in the contact. 2 minutes left to go here. Still anybody's game as this is just down by a try. We see some bodies over here on the right-hand side as the launch comes in quickly for Kansas City. They look to go to the boot now to try and get some territory, not finding any real estate there. It ends up rolling out, and Clayson might have just gotten them one of the best positions that they could be in. Kansas City pin the Impalas down here in the sun and only about a minute and a half to go.
Man, the decision to go to the boot right there could have went a whole lot of different ways. If that became a 50-22, that might have essentially put this game away. But Indy having little moments of momentum, showing that they can put a little pressure. You're seeing the flick passes. You're seeing the offloads, unfortunately, in the middle of the field, they lost the peel. But Indy, they are not going to go away. They're going to fight to the bitter end, and they have an opportunity now, which might be their last, to get down and get points on the board.
Going in the middle, Kansas City do a good job of getting into that space, but referee's not happy with the way that they went up. Might have gone up before that middle pod did for the Impalas. So they've got a penalty. Temple will go ahead and look to the boot so that they can get farther down in this end, playing the territory game. He only gets about 20 meters, but it's 20 meters further than where they're at. So now they're within the 40. And this looks like it very well might be the last bit of the game. We're running off of all of the cards and time off that we've experienced throughout this matchup between the Impalas and Kansas City. So we will be with you to the bitter end here. Kansas City go up after a fake in the front, and Nate does well to field it, but realizing that nobody's on him, he decides to go ahead and take it himself. And Temple works it back to Inari. Inari gets it into the inside center's hands for an ankle tap tackle, forces him to crawl for that extra bit of meters. Inari moving it now to the 15. He takes it into the Palmers. And continuing now to press on the forwards, hit the hinge, and they get the meters that they want. But some of the Kansas City players are just slow getting out of there. They're going to have to watch their discipline. Somebody's just taken out as Inari moves it to Barton. Barton now, the ball is available. Temple has to pick it up, and so he goes around the hinge, gets the go forward, and is at the 40 now, but he's in, so we'll see who picks it up. Inari moves it to the forwards, and it looks like time is dwindling out there as Inari plays 9 again. Schroeder gets it to his outside buddy there, Clack. And it looks like we've got a penalty advantage on this side for the Impalas there as Inari comes in and plays 9. Temple looks a little bit banged up there, trying to stay in the thick of it. But we'll come back for this penalty there, going in favor of the Impalas.
Under 2, heads.
Dear goodness, this game is full of all the drama you can ask for. Both teams bringing it. So we have just around 2 minutes left. I guess it isn't so close to the bitter end as we thought. Referee saying under 2 minutes. But whether or not it's under 2 minutes or Kansas City has to get their defensive discipline together, stop getting rung up for these penalties, and create an opportunity where they can steal the ball and essentially move Indy back across the field as they've done with that miraculous boot that we've seen so far. But Indy has the momentum, and these fans around the stands and the crowd that's watching this game are on the edge of their seats. This is going to be one of those endings, ladies and gentlemen.
20-25, they fake it in the front, get it in the back, and then Nay has to lob it to Schroeder, who's waiting for it. The centers take it right into the heart of the Kansas City. A bunch of bodies being called off there as Temple moves it to the forward pack. They get around the side, and somebody's in there, but he's called off as well. Doing well to protect the ball is the Impalas. Inari moves it to Nay, who's just tossed to ground there. This defensive pressure looking technically sound by Kansas City. They've got more time to play, so whoever ends up getting this ball back within the next minute or so will determine who's going tomorrow. Schroeder gets Clack and then moves it to the 12 because there's no protection over the ruck. So Marsh is just taking it in. Now shuffling back inside is the number 7. Well is just continuing to press on. The Impalas, the support floods in. Temple moves it back inside to Schroeder. Schroeder taking the ground quickly, hands it up on the ground first, so an advantage goes out. That'll go in favor of the Impalas. We'll see if Temple decides to go ahead for the quick tap. He does. Now whipping and weaving back inside. They just aren't able to find that connection, but ball did not go backwards or knocked on, so they continue to press on.
Let's go, guys.
Picking and going now is the Impalas. 20-25. They need a try in order to take this game back. Almost a steal coming from Kansas City, but the Impalas end up with it. bodies of red trying to come over top of this white side.
Drive. We have the advantage.
Tussling at the breakdown. We have an advantage that's come up here. Can they get over and in between the center sticks? We see the decision possibly to go over top, but Kansas City backs off here, trying to keep everybody on the defensive line. They're just banging at that door, demanding every single meter.
Held up.
Referee calls it held up. There's a center penalty there about 5 meters out.
White ball penalty.
In time, you've got to wonder if we are out of it.
White ball.
I mean, look at the fatigue on both teams. Look at both teams are tired. Both teams are going. This is the ending we've been waiting on, Darian.
A tap that goes into the hands of the forwards. They're now just setting the platform and they're getting the meters. So right now, the Kansas City are going to have to play a lot of low defense. If they make it in the middle, then a conversion could make it so that the Impalas get in for tomorrow for the chance to play for this D2 regional championship. It looks pretty promising as more bodies just continue to flood in. And the space, it still looks like they're going to stick around their shoulder, drops it straight down. But was it because a hand got in there? It looks like it was. The number 10, it doesn't look like they were back 10. But referee says play on. Temple moves it to the left-hand side, has to do a little bit of a dance. Everybody getting caught in that passing lane, it looks like. Forwards now, this is tiring stuff for it. An arm is out, so you've got to wonder if a card's going to end up coming out of this. That's 5 times now. The Impalas now hitting the hinge. The interior defense holding strong. But this flood of defense, can it hold up against a wave of attack? In the Impalas, just looks like they are right at the line. Can the Impalas do it and get over for a try? A penalty try is awarded
Penalty try.
in favor
Great
of
call.
the Impalas.
Great call. Great call. Great call.
And that's game 27-25. The Impalas are on top. They will make it through it tomorrow off of a last-minute penalty try. Kansas City, the heartbreak, but the celebration for the Impalas. Lance, talk us through that last minute.
Well, after the multiple driving, they're not in their proper position. And at the very end, a high tackle called on by the referee gives a penalty try, automatic 7. Indy's is on.
And next up, we will have the St. Louis Bombers versus the Park City Aggies there. After an exciting last 2 matches, this next one is going to be one that you don't want to miss, called by none other than the Lance Kavanaugh and John Broker. Stay with us, team.